Hello, and welcome to our latest Kinetic session. I'm Kingsley Johnson, and each week I invite elite athletes, business owners, and thought leaders to share their strategies, techniques, and ideas to achieve more. The purpose of these sessions is to provide a little inspiration to help us all navigate these exceptional times. At Kinetic PD, our team of world-class athletes and business trainers help organisations embed the psychology of elite sport in their teams. And we do this to drive high performance and well-being at work. Our interactive workshops, professional coaching programs, and recruitment support services all help to embed the behaviours, attitudes, and mindsets to achieve more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our session, and enjoy. Break for Growth provides training and support for small and medium-sized businesses on topics which include marketing in a digital world, inspirational leadership, and resilience. Cathy has built up a wealth of experience in leading marketing campaigns for some of the world's largest brands such as Coca-cola, Heinz, and Cadbury. And she now uses her knowledge and experience to help small and medium-sized businesses to excel. In today's talk, Cathy shares her thoughts on transformational leadership and the importance of creating a compelling vision of the future to help people prepare for and embrace change. It was an absolute pleasure to have Cathy Rhodes as my guest for this Kinetic session. Hello, Cathy, and thanks for joining us today. I wondered if you would be kind enough to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, of course, Kingsley. My background's in marketing, and for many years I worked with big brands like Coke, Heinz and Cadbury. I'm fascinated by what motivates people to behave as they do, and that's what attracted me to a career in marketing, because that's what it's all about. Understanding what motivates people to behave and professionally influencing it is at the heart of all great marketing. You need to get results to other people to achieve commercial success, not only persuading customers to buy from you, but also others who have an interest in what you're doing. So, for example, I set up in business in 2000, and my first client was Coca-cola. I did a couple of big projects with them, the second of which was a project called Music for You. This was what they grandly called an experiential marketing campaign. To the likes of you and me, what it was really a very big promotion, supported by media, in-store promotion and theatre. It was a large undertaking. It was in partnership with News International, and it was at the heart a collector promotion. So tokens were printed on a variety of different packs of Coca-cola, Diet Coke, Cherry Coke, and also carried in the Sun and the then news of the world newspapers. And people collected those and they redeemed them against a whole range of music merchandise, from Britney Spears' key fobs at the low end right up to drum kits at the high end, if you could collect enough tokens and get together with a billion of your friends to collect as many tokens as were required to get the high end gifts. I started this in January. It was due in market, in store in May. This promotion was running across 18 different packs. So it was quite an undertaking. Anybody that's worked in manufacturing will understand that the race was on. We had very little lead time to actually achieve what we needed to achieve. And there were a whole range of stakeholders that needed to be involved. So at its height, I was leading a project team of around 25 different individuals, people from sales, trade marketing, agencies, the News International Brigade, people from the bottler, the manufacturing side of all of this, to get this colossal undertaking actually where we needed it to be in a relatively short space of time. So getting results to all of those people was absolutely critical to achieve success. Happily, everybody did their bit and we did achieve success. In fact, it ended up being the most successful activity that year globally for the Coca-Cola brand. And that's just one project. I've worked on a variety of different projects over my 30-year career, so I've had ample opportunity to fine-tune my people skills. So, as I mentioned, I've been in business for 20 years and initially offered marketing consultancy to big brands. But over recent years, I developed an offering that works for smaller businesses, sensibly applying those same universal principles to help them to achieve commercial success. This offering centres on the power of advocacy. That is, encouraging other people to shout from the rooftops about you, So getting results through others remains key. Personally, I find working with smaller businesses much, much more fulfilling than working with big corporates. You can make a real difference to real people much more easily. And that, frankly, is what gets me out of bed in the morning, Kingsley. Over the years, I've developed and delivered a lot of training. As you help clients to effect change, you need to ensure people have the skills and the knowledge to play their part in it. I also fell into university lecturing a few years ago. And whenever I train or lecture, I always start with resilience. That is our ability to bounce back when things don't go according to plan. Because if you're not equal to what life throws at you, it doesn't matter how technically competent you are, you're unlikely to achieve your full potential. Some people are naturally more resilient than others, but we can all learn new tools and techniques to build our ability to deal with adversity. And the key to a resilient organisation is a resilient team, underpinned with proper process, of course. Now, this crisis is requiring every one of us to dig deep in this regard. So I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to talk to you today, Kingsley, and share some food for thought to help people keep on keeping on.
Fantastic. And one thing I'd like to ask you as we begin, Cathy, is what is your sense of the public mood now that we're in week 8 of lockdown?
I think there's a growing realisation that this threat will be here for quite some time. This is not something that staying at home for a few weeks will make go away. So the fear and anxiety remain. And now they're joined by a sense of mutiny. The demonstration in Hyde Park this weekend is testament to that. And how exactly was Boris's address last Sunday designed to help us? Does anyone actually know what he was talking about? Mike and I found it utterly baffling. If you need a bit of light relief, there's a great skit by Matt Lucas impersonating Boris that really sums up just how confusing his message was. It's well worth Googling if you haven't seen it. Seriously though, he threw the nation into chaos. And now there's so much dissent from so many quarters regarding their proposed plan to ease lockdown. What is clear is that we still can't spend time with the people we love, have a pint with friends, go out for dinner, play footy in the park, go to a football match, go to church or choir practice, and a whole range of other activities we just took for granted. And we simply don't know how long it will be until we can do these things again. All we hear on the news is pain and suffering, and the prospect of yet more pain and suffering long into the future. I have to say, thank heavens for Captain Tom, the only good news to make the headlines. Oh, aside from just one day only of reporting on the 75th anniversary of VE Day last Friday, one of the most important anniversaries on our national calendar got just one day's coverage. And we're now firmly back to the doom and gloom again. We're being offered precious little hope for the future, Kingsley, and I think that's what we desperately need to keep playing our part in keeping COVID-19 at bay.
That is really interesting, Cathy, and I too, like you, am sharing that feeling of missing sport, especially playing as well. And the achievements of Captain Tom were absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And if you sort of read and see what's being reported in the news and in the media, frustration is definitely building. So would you be kind enough to share your view on the UK government's handling of the crisis so far? What types of things do you think they could be doing better?
That's a good question. But before I answer it, may I say first that criticising government is the easiest thing in the world at the moment, and many are taking great pleasure in doing just that, particularly the media, of course. No one knows how this will play out, and I firmly believe they're trying to do the best they possibly can. I, for one, admire their tenacity and hard work. They must be absolutely exhausted, and still, every day, they have to wake up and keep on keeping on. However, I do have to say, I think there have been some serious shortcomings in their leadership. And as time wears on, the cracks are really starting to show. First and foremost, when leading in a crisis, you need to lead from the front, by example. In the early briefings, instructing us to stay 2 meters apart while standing next to cabinet colleagues completely undermined the message. Visiting second homes assignations with a married lover from another household. It's made a mockery of the whole thing. It appears to be one rule for them and another for us, which does nothing to unite the nation behind what's required of all of us. Second, open channels of communication are vital in a crisis. Allowing everyone to know what's going on, where our leaders' thinking is, and taking on board feedback to adjust their plans accordingly. Politicians have been highly selective about the information they've shared, which, coupled with the transgressions we just talked about, has completely undermined our trust in them. They're asking a lot of us, but they're not giving us good reason, as equals, to continue to make the considerable sacrifices required.
That's so true, Cathy, and it's so easy for people to forget that Boris himself had the virus and is still working tirelessly. I'm not going to say that he's, like you mentioned, getting everything right, and his team aren't necessarily getting everything right, but they are showing up pretty much every day, and they've never encountered this type of situation before. So that opportunity for humility, honesty, openness really, really resonates. So even with all the known dangers of COVID-19, many people are still not heeding the warnings. Could you share any thoughts with us on that?
Yeah, fear of COVID-19 is a powerful motivator. There's no doubt about that. But the reality is that the only impact it's had on most people is the government-imposed restrictions. Now, this is a very good thing. It means they're working. But we're now in week 8 of lockdown. People are bored, they're frustrated, and many are very lonely and isolated as well. We need more than the threat of an infection that has so far failed to affect most of us. We need hope for the future. And this is really where I think our leaders, along with leaders around the world, this is not just exclusive to the UK, are truly failing us. In order to effect the transformational change that's required, we need a compelling vision for the future. Not just the bleak prospect of recession and unemployment, which is all our media sees fit to report. There have been some wonderful byproducts of this crisis. The renewed sense of community, countless acts of kindness and humanity, quality time with our families, and a realisation that fighting your way to a place of work every day might not be quite as necessary as we thought. And of course, in the background, our planet has quietly rejuvenated herself as we catch up on our box sets. Leaders need to help us to look forward to a world where some of these positive and healthy changes become a part of our daily life. If we understand the bigger why to our sacrifice, then the majority of us will happily lock arms behind our leaders to do whatever is required to overcome this.
Once again, Cathy, that's so true, and it resonates so much. And I believe one of our challenges will be, how do we maintain these habits that we've developed during this process that to benefit ourselves, but also benefit the teams that we work with within organizations as well. And so turning our attention to the future, it's clear that life will change as we exit the lockdown. What do you think this means, or what do you think the main impacts will be on how we do business going forward?
Well, whilst the COVID-19 threat remains, which will be for some considerable time, we believe there'll be social distancing and other associated constraints, which are going to require some very careful handling. That in itself is a minefield. There is so much legislation associated with these types of rules and requirements going forward. So that in itself is going to be tough. And for some industries, it's even more of a minefield than others. Pubs and restaurants, for example, are currently wrestling with how on earth they're going to make money whilst limiting their customer numbers. There are absolutely no easy answers for them, and my heart goes out to them, quite frankly. There'll be pent-up demand for products and services, but in many cases depleted cash to meet that demand. Supply chains will have to be rebuilt, and restructuring will be on the cards for many businesses, and sadly many redundancies. And all of this whilst leading a team that's bone weary of fear and change. People are emotionally spent. They're fearful of further change and in desperate need of some kind of a normality, whatever that ends up looking like. We need strong leadership to come out of this thriving Kingsley. Transformational leadership.
Transformational leadership. That sounds powerful.
It is, it's immensely powerful. It was a concept first introduced by James McGregor Burns in 1978, so it's not a new thing at all. He describes transformational leadership as a process by which leaders and followers help each other to advance to a higher level of motivation and morality. This sounds grand, but in essence, it's rather than being motivated through fear to play our part, which is basically what our leaders have expected us to do so far, it's about creating this idea that there's something bigger than ourselves that we're part of, having a higher purpose and raising our standards. In elite sports, this is bread and butter stuff. Elite athletes are motivated by this bigger purpose to perform at their very best. And this is why I'm such a fan of your work, Kingsley. Working with elite athletes to transfer this learning into business really helps it to resonate.
Thank you, Cathy. And one thing that I'm quite taken by, and I think many of us are quite taken by, is The Last Dance. And it's that series which has been commissioned by ESPN and it's currently showing on Netflix. And it documents the sporting dynasty created by the star player Michael Jordan, the head coach Phil Jackson, and the rest of the Chicago Bulls team, who between 1991 and 1998 won 6 NBA championships.
Yes, truly impressive stuff. And thanks to your recommendation, it's next on our binge watching list. Being part of a bigger picture is hugely motivating when we feel that we belong and we feel that we matter. Simon Sinek is a huge advocate of this. You recently mentioned to me his latest book, The Infinite Game. Sinek talks about the importance of starting with the why. People don't care what you do or how you do it until they understand why you do it. In the context of business, this applies not only to customers, but to your team too. And any other stakeholders for that matter, shareholders, the media, business partners, for example. If we can get clear on the bigger picture why, our vision of how the world will be changed when our work here is done, people will get behind us and play their part in achieving it. Consider Winston Churchill. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall never surrender. Or Martin Luther King. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. This is the inspiration we need to play our part in defeating our current enemy.
That was so powerful, Cathy. And the way that you invoked Churchill there, it got a big smile on my face. So, if you were advising Boris in the current crisis, do you have any thoughts on the compelling vision that would inspire us to continue to dig deep and maintain?
That's a great question, Kingsley. I shouldn't really be a backseat driver on this if I'm not offering some kind of solution. So I have given some thought to this, and I've come up with the following, and I'd welcome your listeners' views on it. A world where we look out for our fellow man, build a thriving community, and work together to create a brighter future for everyone. You see, I too have a dream. Does this sound the stuff of fantasy? Well, it probably did before this crisis hit, and perhaps even now. Victory in the war was far from assured when Churchill issued the rallying cry I just mentioned. Racial hatred was still embedded in American culture at the time of Martin Luther King's powerful speech. And yet, each was able to paint a rich picture of a higher purpose that their followers could get behind. Consider what strides we've already made towards the vision I suggested, the wonderful positives we discussed earlier on. Now perhaps, just perhaps, all we now need is a few missing jigsaw pieces to make this an enduring future that we can all play our part in creating.
Thank you, Cathy, for those inspiring and powerful thoughts.
A great pleasure. Thanks for having me, Kingsley.
We thoroughly enjoyed making this session, and for more information on our guest speakers, please see the links in the description. And to learn more about the Kinetic PD team and how we help organisations embed the psychology of elite sport in their teams, visit our website at kineticpd.co.uk. And it just leaves me to say, We are stronger together. Enjoy the journey and stay safe.